Stories influence, teach, and inspire us. But what about the storytellers who create them? Uncorking a Story profiles storytellers to uncover how their background and life experiences influence the stories they create. We learn what motivates them, their path to success, and what fuels them to keep creating. It all starts by asking one simple question: where does your story begin? Welcome to Uncorking a Story. Now here's your host, Mike Carlon.
Jonathan Bogner is a reality TV and feature film producer, entrepreneur, and true inspiration. In 2022, he underwent a heart transplant, receiving a woman's heart. His journey, however, began long before that. In 2008, Jonathan suffered heart failure, two massive strokes, and lost his ability to speak due to aphasia. With the help of an implanted cardio defibrillator, which could shock him back to life at any moment, he began his remarkable recovery. His resilience, humor, and determination carried him through yet another life changing event, the heart transplant in 2022. Here to talk about his incredible story of survival, rehabilitation, and reinvention is Jonathan Bogner. Welcome to Uncorking a Story, Jonathan.
I'm so pleased to be with you and interviewed by you and your listeners.
There's a lot to unpack just in that introduction, but I always like to start at the beginning of someone's story. So, where does your story as a storyteller begin?
Well, my story begins when I sold a movie at Sundance, came home feeling I felt mentally on top of the world, but I came home and I suffered two strokes, heart failure, and aphasia. So everyone kind of knows what heart failure is and strokes. I had massive strokes, and they don't really know what aphasia is. So it was the inability for me to speak. Like I'm talking to you, I really couldn't speak for about a year and a half.
So
So
I do definitely want to dig into the health issues, but I
yeah.
can't let the selling a movie at Sundance go. Was this the first movie that you've ever sold?
No, no, no. I produced 16 movies. Lots of family movies. I produced Red Riding Hood, Hansel and Gretel, The Retrievers, lot of dog films, and then some sports action films like Supercross and those types of films, and then Soccer Mom. And I did kind of like a horror film that was kind of off topic, but I did a horror film at you know, and that was a film I was trying to sell at Sundance. You know,
When did you know that you wanted to be in this business? Was it like a childhood dream to kind of get in the entertainment business, or how did you wind up in it?
I mean, I grew up in London, so I lived in London for 18 years. I moved here when I was going 18 to go to UCLA. And my family were very successful in the music business. So my aunt managed this, well-known singer in England called Lulu. My uncle managed a band called Culture Club. My cousin managed a band called Wang Chung. And my mother was managing a supermodel called Jean Shrimpton. These are in the 60s. And yeah, and then Wang Chung, and those were in the 80s. But I decided that very early on that I really couldn't compete with my family. So I decided to go to UCLA and kind of major in film, and so that's what happened. And so kind of like the first job I could got was being a clearance person for music. So there is no job that says producer. So, and in those days, you have to figure out your way to be a producer. So I chose kind of music as a pair, and knew a lot of people in the music business. And then I was able to be a music supervisor, and I supervised, films like The Doors and my stepmother's an alien, pirates, and something I was very proud of was doing the Cosmos with Carl Sagan.
Sure.
And then I kind of I segued into being an executive, and then as an executive at a film company, and then I kind of like was there for music, but I kind of like always wanted to be a producer. So I found a movie, and all the people that I were with, that I found were they became really well known and famous. So I worked with a gentleman called Lawrence Bender with his first movie, and it was Intruder. And so I was doing music, and then I was trying to be the executive producer on his movie. And then it kind of segued into, being a producer in my own right. And so I became a producer and produced, as I said, 16 movies. And then, went to Sundance, came home, had the stroke, heart failure, aphasia, and then, couldn't speak, and sometimes the aphasia kind of kicks in. So I had to like reinvent myself. So in order to reinvent myself and you can't speak, it's, you know, anything is challenging, but being a producer is more challenging, I feel, because you're always pitching. It's being like a salesperson.
Yeah.
So by reinventing myself, the first show, coincidentally, was a show that I got my son an agent, and I got him a manager, and they set up meetings, and it's amazing. We sold that show to E-Television, and it's called Party Prince 90212. And at that meeting, ultimately, when we sold ourselves as a production company, I couldn't speak, and no one noticed. It's amazing because if you allow people to pitch themselves or sell themselves, and you just stand back, right? They sell themselves.
Yeah.
So that's what happened. So I became a reality producer, and I produced 10 reality shows that were on the air. All the while I had a defib in my heart. So this, fortunately, my first surgeon gave it back to me because he had no use for it. For me, it's a big memento. And so I had a defibrillator, and if you don't know what a defibrillator is, if anyone has ever shocked you, like tasered you, like you're nodding, has anyone tasered you before?
Why? I've never been tasered, but I've certainly been shocked.
Okay, okay. So it's a shock with a electrical device attached to your heart and shocks you. So for almost like the first 10 years, I really didn't get many shocks. And then after the last, 4 or 5 years, I was getting shocked, consistently. I got 8 shocks, and and they were coming in increasingly, every 6 months. And when you get shocked, and when your heart has that massive shock, um, it degrades the heart. So it's not like, you have a healthy heart. It's a degraded heart. And every time you get shocked, it gets worse and worse and worse.
So the in other words, the path you were on there was not a good one, or certainly not necessarily long term. If your heart keeps degrading after you get the juice, if you will. But just a few things to reflect on here for a second. When you held up that defibrillator, I'm thinking to myself, oh my gosh, this is Tony Stark. Like you are
Yeah.
Iron Man, because he had that thing. Right? His character had that thing in his chest as well. But I'm
Yeah.
thinking of you in these pitch meetings and not saying anything. Some that might have left the impression that this guy's got no ego. Like who is he's got the smallest ego in Hollywood, but obviously that was not by choice.
Well, I made up for it when I now I'm talking to you. I paid it up for it. So yeah, yeah. So you know what? Sometimes like you have a manager, an agent, my son was like the spokesperson, and you've got all the executives, you know, you're just getting in the way. So I just felt, in order, I was very judicious and aware of my situation. My son was aware of my situation. So the less I spoke, the better for both of us. And ultimately, we went in and had a lot of success. And so, I was getting the defib, shocking myself. And as you mentioned, it was a ticking time bomb. So when I was 45, when I first, you know, was, diagnosed, really, it was called, y- when I first got the strokes, they told my wife that, and I couldn't really speak. They told my wife that, he needs a new heart. And I mean, the simple math is, I'm like, no, 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 no. The simple math is when you get a heart, assuming you don't have a lot of rejection, you'll live for, between 5 to 20 years. Okay. So I'm on that 20-year path. But the longer I got, but waiting for the heart is a tricky situation. I wanted to be so sick in order to get the heart, right? And it's a weird thing that you want to be sick in order to get the heart, because I knew when I got that heart, there's probably no do-overs. So it's better for me to get the heart as late as possible. So I got the heart 2 years ago, August 8th. Um, and it's a woman's heart, you know. Who would have known? But I'm small in stature, big in ego, small in stature. But and this woman, and I had the same blood and size. So they have to match you the size and you know, coincidentally, people talk about heart. So heart memories, okay? Brain memories. But, I know this woman had a strong desire for certain types of foods that I didn't have. And when I got the heart, they kind of like, oh my God, I now love peanuts. I love cashews. And I mean, like my wife keeps, buying all these nuts. And it was like, what happened to you, Jonathan? I don't know. I think the heart had memories and the heart likes peanuts.
Well, there's a lot to unpack there, but it sounds like you wanted like the Michael Dell approach, a just-in-time inventory for the heart, right? You wanted to wait to that last possible moment.
Mm.
Curious, like you're kind of, had a lot of credits. Your career is going in a great direction. All of a sudden, you get sidelined, which is probably putting it mildly. How do you kind of work through that? And kind of how do you get back to a place where you're being productive again, because yeah, I'm sure that this was a major curveball.
I mean, it was lights out. It's not a major curveball because of, and if you're using the baseball analogy, you actually have a chance to get up and try to hit. It was for me, it was lights out because I don't know if any of your listeners know, there is a heart pumping mechanism, okay? And it's called an ejection fraction. My ejection fraction was 9%. Okay. You look very healthy. You look very your ejection fraction is probably between 50 and 60. Okay. I mean,
Well,
you've never been
flattery will get you everywhere with me, Jonathan. So
okay. I'll keep flattering you because you look very good and you look handsome, and I'm sure that your ejection fraction is in the 50 to 60 range. Again, you're never going to get 100%. So my range was 9%, and I feel certain things that I learned in order to get the heart were instrumental. First thing, I was always an avid exerciser. Exercise is my drug of choice. So I exercised and I walked. You can't walk a cat. You have to get a dog or a spouse that will walk with you. So I walk 1 hour a day and I exercise 1 hour a day. And in between I do a little exercise. But I feel that because I'm in such great shape in order to get the heart, that really helped me. And my cardiologists have already, they've always told me, you were in I trained to get that heart because I knew when you get a heart, you're going to lose weight. You're going to be, your muscles are not going to work. I mean, you're just, I was 125 pounds. After the heart, I was 99 pounds. So doing the math, there was about 25% difference in body weight. That's a lot for a human being.
Yeah.
So anyway, I got the heart and I kind of manifested my own philosophy, and my philosophies, can I tell you kind of like what
I would love to hear your philosophy.
I feel optimism is universal. Everyone knows you live longer if you're optimistic. Okay. So there's no such thing of waking up and being optimistic. I believe it's rigorous optimism. It's rigorous because it's not a given. You wake up in the morning and you feel great. So you have to practice and be rigorously optimistic. And sometimes you don't feel that optimistic and you have to just go on with it. Everyone has to demonstrate being rigorously optimistic. And then rugged flexibility. So you know, people want to say that you're rigid in your ways of doing things. You have to be flexible, but it has to be rugged. So rugged flexibility, and then you have to have a resilience. And for me, it's resiliency. You know, I have to be resilient, and I've had tremendous business issues, and I've had tremendous health issues. I'm still optimistic, and I'm so happy to talking to you, and the words are coming out. So this is a good moment for me at this point in my life.
So those are three R words you just threw at me there. So rigorous, rugged, resilience.
Yeah,
There's a branding opportunity for you there, I think, Jonathan.
I think so. Maybe we should talk after the podcast, but I really want to do the R's because people can remember the three R's. And that will be the introduction to my forthcoming book. So I want to preview it because it's all about being an optimistic person, and it's being rigorously optimistic. So I'm developed through what happened to me when I was in the hospital for 30 days. I developed, I just kind of came up with you know, uh, 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 a site for people to, you know, put their personal stories. So I called it personalstories.net. And most of the stories are about me. I really didn't open it up to the public, but I'm happy to do it. But it's all about personal stories and mostly personal stories, personal health stories. And so then I got some people, posting their stories, and it's amazing. Everyone has a story. Whether you're a storyteller by nature, but you have your own story. And whether it's interesting to the public, but it's interesting to you and your family. And so I wanted to tell people's personal stories. And then out of that, because I was in the hospital when I came home, you know, throughout my journey, my health journey, my wife was always my caregiver. She didn't think that she was my caregiver, but ultimately she was my caregiver. Because when I went to bed at night with my defibrillator, I had PTSD. I didn't know because I didn't know if I'm going to wake up in the morning. I mean, I was every 6 months, I was getting shocked. And I mean, that is scary. So when I got the heart, and I was thinking about personal stories. It came to me that I should do a TV show or a reality show because my training was being a producer. So, what better person, because I clearly have firsthand experience. So it's like, can't hire an actor to play me or an actor to do or a host because I can really talk to caregivers and patients, about what's going on for them. I mean, if it's Parkinson's, if it's cancer, if it's heart failure, one, I'm totally empathetic about what they're going through. And I have my own issues. When I got the heart, it was not like, you know, see you later. I go to the heart clinic every 3 months to check my heart out. There's always a risk of rejection, but also the heart came with another virus that I didn't have. So it's called CMV. I was not a carrier. The heart was a carrier. So I'm still dealing with that 2 years later with the CMV. And then also, I was in the hospital last year 2 times. They thought it was a heart attack. And it ultimately was heart spasms. So people throughout, you know, they spasm, your hands, your feet. Everyone has had that experience, but I don't think a lot of people have heart spasms. And it's like, my doctors, all the residents, it's like they don't want to touch you because I don't know the policies. They don't touch you. It's like, a doctor that was kind of like my age. And I'm like, please touch my heart. You'll feel what I'm feeling, but no one else wants to touch me. But you touch me. I don't care what the monitors say. And he's like, okay, you got heart spasm. Thank you very much. So what are we going to do? Okay, we'll put you on a new drug. So, and I still deal with those issues. So when I came back and I rehabilitated myself, I couldn't even walk up my own stairs. I mean, I fell down my stairs and and I couldn't, and I was taking, 40 pills a day, you know, 40 times 7 is 280 pills a day. I mean, a week. That's a lot of pills. So I'm still right now taking about 30 pills a day. But what happened was I really knew that I needed a new purpose in my life. And my new purpose is telling stories about caregivers.
Yeah. I want to just pause on that for a
Yeah.
second because caregivers, um, I know because I've interviewed some other authors who have done similar things. One in particular, not an author, a documentary filmmaker who did a documentary film on caretakers of people with dementia,
Right.
and they are sort of an unseen group of people. There's so much usually a lot of focus on the person who is sick, but the person who is caring for them often feels unseen. And I know this also because my brother passed away from cancer last year. I'm close with his wife, who was his primary caretaker, and we've had those conversations where just being a caregiver takes a toll because they're dealing with the person who is sick and they're mourning the person who may have passed, but fewer people are kind of looking out for them.
Yeah.
So I
Yeah.
love the work that you're doing with storytelling around this, and particularly because stories bring people together and they help people not feel so alone. So it sounds like a wonderful thing you're doing with personalstories.net and just kind of shining a light on these people.
Yeah. I mean, you're so right because, certain caregivers, I mean, there's about 53 million people who are caregivers, and about 29 million of those people are actually going have kids, they're going to work and they're caring for their parents of their unpaid caregivers and there's paid caregivers. So unpaid caregivers like your sister-in-law. She was going through that emotions. I don't know if she has kids or not, but maybe she had kids. She's dealing with her husband. She's dealing with uh, um, your brother. But at the same time, what about her? And they get sick. Caregivers also get sick. Some caregivers are barely surviving. They're maybe a little bit healthier because they can go up and down or they can walk. But compared to the people that they're caring for, there's a whole new world of caregivers and sick caregivers. So just on my block, there's at least 3 people who are in their 80s to 90s, and clearly everyone lives too long. That's I'm not saying I'm just saying the quality of life 85 to 95, it's not a great life, but no one wants to die. No one wants to die. But so they have caregivers, and a lot of my neighbor had 24-hour caregivers, paid professionals, and they have no training. I mean, they can, uh, maybe they can just dial 911. I mean, there's someone in the house. That's what people want. But it's we're turning into a nation of caregivers.
Yeah. I want to go back to your personal story a little bit, to just dig into that rigorous optimism. Uh,
Well,
what is what has been helpful for you in that regard? And the one thing I want to think about is, have you been able to look at, this your situation in terms of, the heart disease, the strokes, the aphasia. Have you at all been able to look at that as a gift that was given to you versus something that happened to you? In other words, like, have you been able to find any kind of silver linings there? And has that helped with the rigorous optimism?
that's a really good question. Um, I always wanted to be a producer, and I produced reality shows, and then I was a music supervisor, and it's like, I've never been in front of the camera. And so, the silver lining is it created new purpose. So everyone needs purpose in their life. I mean, you've got your a job and then you do your podcast. I mean, so you have purpose in interviewing everyone, right? So your podcast is well known. It's a fantastic podcast, and so it's like, you have purpose, and then you have, you know your job, and so people need purpose in their lives, and they manifest their own purpose, and you know they get a little nuts. So when I was in the hospital and when I'm covered, and I was searching, what should I do, really? And so, which I didn't really want any clients, but I got people that wanted my help in selling a reality show. And so then, okay, I'm doing that. And at the same time, it's like I just had this need to express myself, and storytelling is the best way because it's pretty much it's you're telling, a human interest story. And so I think caregivers are unsung, as you said, heroes. And so I just wanted to tell their story, and I created a sizzle reel, and then I created a deck, and we're just looking for a distribution partner. We're trying to get, one of a network or maybe PBS. So we're out there pitching um a distribution, and then we're also looking for sponsors to pay for the show.
Yeah.
And I want to do 12 episodes, and each episode will be will focus on a different aspect of someone's health. We'll focus on cancer, we'll focus on Parkinson's, heart disease, cancer, and I'll have specialists. And then, it sounds like a dire show, right? Why would I watch this show? There's also moments of levity, and I will have America's funniest caregivers. I'll have, I mean, we're all serious about what we do, but you're smiling, I'm smiling. So, we also it can't be so dire that no one will watch it. it's I want people to watch it and learn. That's a bad word, learners, but people learn all different types of modality. And so, watching a TV show and getting some information, maybe someone will watch it out the nutrition is hard and what you need, what is your best diet, you know? So and there has to be funny moments. And that's why I wanted to have like America's Funniest Home Videos with caregivers and
Yeah.
patients.
But it's also a celebration of caregivers too, and it's hard to have a celebration if everything is, so incredibly heavy.
Mhm.
Because there are those light moments, and I remember my sister-in-law told me, my mother-in-law recently my mother, just under a month ago, passed from heart failure, at almost 91 years old.
Sure.
And when I was going, I was with her, I was at her bedside, and my sister-in-law said, one thing that helped her when she was going through it with my brother was to find I'm trying to remember the exact phrase, but kind of find the gifts in the muck, or to find those moments of levity in the muck. And I can tell you, it was me, my sister, my brother, my father, we were all around my mother, during her final days. And there were some periods of very inappropriate laughter,
Mhm.
very inappropriate storytelling going on while mom was in the hospital bed. But you need to find those things. You need to have those things, or else you're just going to go insane. Like Jimmy Buffett said it: if we weren't all crazy, we would go insane. Uh,
Well,
you need to find it. It's important to do.
yeah, and I always when I interview caregivers, and I've done 20 interviews, but and it's so dire and so, um, you know, they know their patient is going to die, right? That's a given. So, but there has to be moments that, you know, you know, in the hospital room with nurses, or, you have to have a little bit of joy in the moment. And that's what I'm looking for. When I got the heart transplant and they were, in the gurney, and I said, "Oh, this is gonna take what, 3 minutes?" It's like, and they were like stunned, like, "What do you mean 3 minutes?" I said, "I saw it on YouTube. It's 3 minutes." And then, no, 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 no. This is gonna be at least 8 hours. It's like, okay, all right. So then they put me to sleep. And I'm just saying, it's like, you know, everyone cracked up in the not auditorium, the theater, that the operating theater. So it's like, you have to, and I was always waiting for those moments of levity or fun, because it is so dire. It is so dire what you're
Yeah,
going through, and even the doctor laughed.
yeah. Well, you definitely want the doctor to be loose and calm. So,
Yeah, 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 yeah.
um, I realize we were talking about your story. We're talking about, I mean, caregivers, and your wife was primary caregiver for you. There's another story here that I wanted just to touch on a little bit. You did before, but that's the story of the donor, and you shared,
Mhm.
um, the heart, her heart having a memory, and it had to do with nuts or cashews or something. Did you know that before you got the heart, or how did you put those dots together, and what did you know about the donor?
Okay, so when you get an organ, a donated organ, I would say most of the time, unless it's a relative and they're giving you a kidney, if I don't know. Well, it's HIPAA laws. It's the doctors and the facilities. There is a privacy. So I knew the age, approximate age of the woman, and I knew it was a woman. That's all I knew. That's all I knew. And that's all they were going to tell me. So I felt that I wanted to write that letter at the right moment. So originally, I was so enamored getting a heart. And also, you know, the oxygen to my brain has really increased. That's why I'm chatting with you today. But, 2.5 years ago, there was not a lot of oxygen to the brain. So, I was really appreciative. And even though I had the CMD and also had the spasms, that they're nothing compared to like getting a heart. So when I wrote that letter after a year and I sent it to the procurement, the person that the facility that procures the organ. So I sent it to them and they gave it to the donor. So I never heard back from my donor. It's not YouTube. It's not a kumbaya moment. So it's not like those moments on YouTube where everyone gets to meet each other and they go out for dinner and it's like those are rare. They're very rare, but that's why they're on YouTube. So that's why I wrote this letter, really heartfelt letter, and I get teary. So it's like, about getting that gift of life. And they I never heard back from them. My theory is it's a woman. And I don't know any, I just know that she probably, I'm assuming she had kids and, it was too painful.
Yeah.
So I don't know. I don't know anything about the donor really.
Okay. Did you ever see the movie? I'm gonna guess yes, but I don't want to assume anything. Return to Me with David Duchovny and Minnie Driver.
I think maybe. Yeah.
It might hit a little close to home, but it is about a couple. Woman dies, and her heart goes to this other woman, um,
Oh,
and then the husband falls in love with her. After
oh, okay. Okay.
it's a cute story. David Duchovny, one of the earlier movies post X Files, but
Yeah.
um, a cute story.
Are you
So
referring to the cashews or you say, you know,
but I love this notion of finding new purpose and creating new purpose, as a silver lining. And you're right, we all need purpose in life to keep going. So what's next for you? I mean, what's next with this project? Like, how do you? Yeah, I'm always curious about how these things work. I've written books, and then you see them in market, but how do you go from idea to getting something actually on the screen?
well, I mean, I believe I'm fortunate in the sense that I know agents who are gatekeepers, who could help me. I have not gone after an agent, but I have many relationships with agents and managers. But right now, I need distribution. So, and I don't want to do it on by myself on YouTube or um, uh, get it. I mean, everyone can get on YouTube, but I really need a network because I feel like I have an important message. And again, caregivers are not quote a sexy subject matter. So I'm trying to go to certain types of broadcasters, PBS, maybe, American Public Network, the Hallmark Channel, certain channels that, that's their kind of their audience. Yes, it's an older viewership. So I'd like to get a network and normally the network would have relationships with streaming services. I don't want to do that and I don't think I need to do that right now, but so that I will get a broadcaster. Then I need sponsors to pay for the show. Right now, I sent out my sizzle reel, and in order to create a sizzle reel, everyone's got a cell phone. You can film yourself, and your heartfelt message is, try to get broadcasters and try to get sponsors. I got a lucky break because I know a lot of editors. So my friend has edited a lot of the footage for me. And then also, again, I had some breaks with other people that I know who did all the graphic design for the deck for me. So you should know that it is a process, and I'm on that journey, and I will not surrender. I will succeed. So it's a purpose that I will continue to try to get broadcaster and sponsors. And then I can tell then I can do my show. It's a talk show. So, again, the talk show is Killer with Killer this week. And then it's authors, lobbyists, therapists, um, advocates, kind of like a roundtable discussion. And then it's going to be segment of nutrition, a segment of exercise, and there's just a wrap up. And there's America's Funniest Home Videos.
Yeah. I love the talk show format. I always wanted to be a talk show host myself, and I'd be remiss if I didn't say R.I.P. to Phil Donahue, who I believe passed away today at the
Yay, yeah.
ripe old age of 88. So
Yep.
one of the greats of I know it's a different type of talk show you're talking about, but
Um, but thank you for asking the question. But I'm saying I'm so determined, you know, uh, to succeed because again, I found my passion, and I would say I found my passion at 63. Do you know what I'm saying? I produced a lot of things. I was passionate about them for a moment, but this is what I want to do for the rest of my life.
yeah. Well, it's an amazing idea, and I wish you all the success in the world with it. One of the things I like to do on my show is to get to know my guests a little bit deeper through pop culture. So I'm curious, Jonathan, when you were growing up, sounds like you were growing up in the UK. What were some of your favorite things to watch on TV? What were you kind of into back in your childhood?
I mean, I think a favorite reference would be like kind of like Doctor Who and sports, and I mean, you know, when I moved here, it was almost for me, it was like 30 something and LA Law. Those are the shows that I kind of gravitated to. But I'm saying the streaming services have kind of like opened my eyes to all the great content that's out there. I mean, there's some really, really good shows. So, I kind of oriented myself to BritBox. Shout out to BritBox, but I love, Netflix and Hulu and Amazon. So they've got great shows, and it's a whole different way of watching.
Did you check out the rebooted Doctor Who?
I have not checked that out.
My follow up was going to be who was your favorite Doctor Who, but
Yeah.
you could tell me that it's David Tennant the next time we speak.
Okay.
How about music? I know you came from a musical family, and you mentioned I know you mentioned people in your family managing Wang Chung. By the way, that song has been stuck in my head since you mentioned Wang Chung. I don't even know what it means to Wang Chung tonight, but
Yeah.
they do. And Culture Club. But who were you into when you were
You
growing up?
know, I I loved man, I mean, I was, Al Green, Otis Redding, uh, I gravitated to, pretty much soul music, or,
Mhm.
R&B. And so, my influences were those types of, bands, not bands. I mean, the Bee Gees, because I knew the Bee Gees, but also I really love the Bee Gees. I mean, that's my touchstone. The Bee Gees. I love their music, and had a nice experience meeting all of them.
They seem like great, genuine guys. I mean, I watched there was a documentary called "How Do You Mend a Broken Heart," which
Yeah,
uh, about the Bee Gees, and just an amazing story.
yeah,
Really amazing story. They seem like just really nice, genuine guys. Barry Gibb. I remember on SNL they did a spoof, something called a parody called the Barry Gibb Talk Show, and I think it was Jimmy Fallon, and he just played Barry Gibb like totally out of character, but it was funny. It
yeah,
worked.
yeah.
It was but I love them too. They're actually Staying Alive is on my half marathon running playlist. It comes on at a
Well,
certain time when I need to hear it.
three of them died, so it's not like,
Yeah,
Barry's a sole survivor.
that's right. And then his younger brother died too, which is a
Yeah, Andy,
Andy.
Andy.
Yeah. And
Yeah,
my wife and I had this argument recently. She's like, Andy was in the Bee Gees. I'm like, no, he wasn't. He was not a Bee Gee. She's like,
yeah.
yes, he was. So we go to Our Lady of Google to get the answer. Sure enough, he wasn't. But my wife will not admit that she's wrong because I guess Barry Gibb sang backup on some of Andy's songs. So she
Barry wrote all his songs,
well,
Andy's.
sure, yeah. Well,
Yeah,
I mean, they wrote so many. They wrote so many songs.
yeah.
Uh,
Well, Dolly Parton, they wrote songs. Yeah,
yeah,
very, they were, they were very, awesome.
yeah, tremendous, tremendous songwriters. And disco was such a small portion, of their career, but
Yeah.
memorable. So, if you could go back in time, Jonathan, and whisper some words of advice into your younger self, maybe it's that 18-year-old kid coming out to California for school. What would you whisper into your younger selves here?
Go back to England. And couldn't, but I just think about that. Should I, you know, there are journeys that we take and there are roads that you travel. So, and there's things you've said to your kids or your wife or, you know, that, should I have done that? Could I have done that? But I'm pleased with who I am and I'm pleased how my journey has come to be. I always wanted to know a guy who had a heart transplant. I never wanted to, I never wanted to be that guy,
Right.
you know, but and I'm survived, so, you know, so my journey is it's a new beginning for me. But at the same time, would I have changed anything? My wife was always saying to me, "Well, if you stuck with one thing, you'd be successful at one thing." But I'm a generalist. I'm not a specialist, and I realized that later on in life. Why didn't I do one thing right and continue with that one thing? But I'm a sampler. I'm a sampler of people. I'm a sampler of life, and I'm happy with myself, and I'm happy to be with you on your podcast. So I don't have any regrets, but there's certain things that well, I'm saying you have regrets, but at the same time, it is what it is in the sense that this is who you are and this is your decisions at that moment. And, based on what are the available options you have, and you probably made the right decision.
Yeah. Well, I think that's a great piece to end on there, Jonathan. I'm curious if people want to get in touch with you, learn more about you, or maybe somebody out there listening is saying, "Hey, I want to distribute this idea you got there." Where can people learn more about you? Do you have websites or social media handles that you can share?
Yeah, my website is you can go to BognerEntertainmentInc.com, or you can go to personalstories.net. And, that's probably the best way to reach me, personalstories.net, email me. I don't know, or email me at Bogner Entertainment, um, uh, inc.com or LinkedIn
All right. I'll be sure to put all of those links
or
into our show
Facebook
notes.
or something. Yeah.
I'll put all that in our show notes. So if anyone's listening and want to get in touch with Jonathan, just go to the show notes, the show description. You'll be able to tap on those links and get to Jonathan right away. Jonathan, thank you so much for stopping by Uncorking Story and letting me uncork yours.
Mike, this has been a pleasure. I really enjoyed chatting with you. It was a long time in coming, but the day arrived and I was so pleased to meet you. And it was a great interview for me. And you look much younger than I imagined.
Thanks for listening to Uncorking a Story. If you'd like more information about today's guest or to find out more about Mike, go to uncorkingastory.com. If you enjoyed the show, please subscribe, rate, and review us at Apple Podcasts, Spotify, or wherever you get your podcasts. Tune in every week to hear Mike Carlon uncork a new story.